welcome to another episode of All About Dab Base. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how I make my kind of temple ruins base. Now, for this base, I used a 3D printed part, and I will put the STL, or the link to the STL down in the description. But I appreciate that not everybody has access to a 3D printer. So if you like this base and you want to make it but you can't 3D print the part, you could just use some skulls or some sprue bits that you've got lying around, or bits of terrain, or anything you want, or you could just leave that off completely and just do the tiled base. Now, one thing you will notice about this video as well is that I have changed the way I produce my videos. I've tried to speed them up a little bit because I've had a little bit of feedback from people, not in a negative way, but just that my videos are quite long, and sometimes it might be better to just get a view of it all without all the extra details and everything in there, because I've been feeling myself that some of my videos are getting a little bit repetitive, where I'm using the same techniques over and over again, but explaining them over and over again. So I have edited this video in a way that I've kind of fast forwarded through it and done a voiceover. So let me know what you think. Hopefully it'll work for you.
These are the items you'll need to make this base. A 3D printed temple pillar, some plasticard cut into strips and then cut into little squares. Then I've got some random rubble and sand. And the first thing you're going to want to do is prepare the base using some white texture paint. And you're just going to spread that all over, all the way to the edges of the base. And then next, you're going to take your little plasticard squares and start arranging them around the base so that you get your nice rows of tiles. And you don't have to be neat doing this. You can place them randomly and push them down so there's a little bit of lift, and do that until you have covered the entire base in the tiles. Once that's nice and dry, you're going to take some sprue cutters and just trim off the excess around the edge of the base. Now, you don't have to be incredibly neat with this, because after all, it's, you know, it's ruins, so it doesn't matter if there's a few rough edges. And then the next thing you're going to want to do is attach whatever it is you want to attach to the base. So for me, it's the 3D part that I printed. I had a little bit of trouble with my super glue here. So you can put this anywhere you want. I'm choosing to put it at the back. And just give that a few seconds to dry. Now for this particular one, using this, I'm just adding a little bit of Vallejo white pumice, just to give that a little bit of shape before we add the rubble later on. And then it's time to prime. So I've primed this in Army Painter bone colour, just because that gave me the colour that I liked. And it also works best on 3D printed parts. I find it covers up the grain lines from the printing. And next, all I'm doing is applying a wash of Agrax Earthshade over everything, but making sure that I really get it in the gaps in between the tiles, just so that it kind of darkens those recesses. And once the wash is dry, we're just going to add a dry brush of Screaming Skull. And I'm adding this all over and making sure that I get it on all the raised parts. And it just brings out those edges. And I'm just going over it again just to make sure that I've got all the bits highlighted that I want to be highlighted. And you can see there, if I get a bit too much paint on any one place, I'm just smoothing it out with my finger and rubbing it in a little bit. And now we're ready to start applying the rubble. So to begin with, I'm just taking some normal PVA glue and applying it over that raised part on the base of the pillar. And to begin with, I'm going to take some of my mixed rubble and just sprinkle a load of that over the glue. And then just to fill in the gaps, I'm also going to apply a little bit of fine, just normal sand. And that just makes sure that it's completely covered. And then carefully, without knocking off the excess, I'm going to apply a few small blobs of glue all over the base, especially around where the pillar's been kind of pulled up from the ground. And I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to sprinkle over some of the rubble and some of the sand. Once the glue's dried, we're going to do our Taylor Swift and shake it off. And you can see that all of that has stuck quite nicely and created some nice rubble effects on the base. So all that's left to do now is paint the rim. And for that, I'm using Citadel's Corvus Black. Et voilà.
So there you go. That is my Temple Ruins base. Now, I'd love to hear your feedback, so if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment and I will get back to you. And also consider subscribing to the channel, and that way you will be notified whenever I release new content. And I'd particularly like to hear your feedback on the new style of the video. Let me know whether you think it works or whether you think I should go back to what I used to do. Because this channel is all about you guys. I want to make sure that I'm providing content that you enjoy and that you find useful. So you can also find me on Facebook and Instagram, and the links to those are down in the description. I will be back on Wednesday with another Back to Basics video, and until then, happy hobbying.